Hi guys, it's Jessica here. I have a lot of Dolly things to go over with you guys, and I always have fun, and I hope that you guys have fun too hearing about Dolly stuff. But if you watch me on Instagram, you've probably been seeing some posts I've been making concerning my character Elandria, and this is her current shell. This is my Lily Cat SightDoll's ombre in blue skin. I got her from a poem without words. I always get her username wrong. It's with no words. um, she's very lovely, Kate. So, but I got this doll from her about a year ago now, and she did the lovely face up. I did some body blushing on her here pretty recently. But so she's been my my shell for Elandria. Actually, my intention for her when I got her was that she was going to be Hurla because I didn't have Hurla yet. And as soon as she arrived and I saw her and was just kind of putting her in different wigs and stuff, and it's like this isn't Hurla. Ultimately, I decided on Twiggling Ingenue. I don't know if you can see her; she's right here. For Hurla's sculpt, which has made things a little bit difficult because Elandria is on this MSD body, and I have reasons in my story why that works, but I'm toying with some different ideas, and I thought I would talk to you guys a little bit about that. But ultimately, I am looking to trade this girl. And I know a lot of people are kind of like, oh, what are you doing? I have two ombres though. So here is, actually I have three because I have a white skin with the sleeping face and then the normal. So, and then this is the blue skin. So, it's hard to know where to start. I'll go over some of my potential plans, but I would like to trade this girl ideally I would like to trade her for another Lily Cat doll, an MSD sculpt that I don't have, and I am somewhat open to a Constantine. She's back there. She's in gray skin. I would potentially be open to a Constantine because I really do love that sculpt, but ideally I would like to get a different one. So Lily Cat, Lilith, I really love her, and I like Ninon. I would prefer like a caramel or tan if you had a Lily Cat sculpt in those colors. That would be something I would consider. But if you have a Lily Cat MSD and you are interested in some sort of trade, we can talk about it. So get in contact with me about that. I guess there's also the potential trading for an SD like Ilana or Lice. I would be open to that too. Of course, you know, we'd have to talk about values and things like that, trade values. So, but I'd be open to any of those discussions. So please contact me if you have something. But anyway, so I'll talk about Elandria. While I hold her here, I'll talk about her story. So these are characters that I have had for years before I got into dolls, and actually a lot of them were deer, basically. So it was a deer sort of background story. They were my characters for the most part. Were fairy creatures, and they were in deer forms. Let me grab the illustration that I just finished yesterday. This is difficult. So this is a Moleskine, which I've had for many years, and I love doing, my favorite thing to do in this is Copic markers. So I don't know if you can see this. So this is Elandria. I drew this yesterday, and this was her deer form. So she's a white doe and she has the characteristics of a piebald peacock. So she has characteristics partly piebald and partly not. This is her design. This is her character design before dolls. And I should share more of my past character designs on here. If you've watched me or seen my DeviantArt, then a lot of that is there, and so some people are familiar with that. I don't necessarily am interested in complete direct interpretations of my characters that were in these deer forms into doll, and like they have to be just like direct interpretations. So that I do it very loosely because I want freedom. I like being able to do different things, and that's been part of the appeal of the doll hobby for me. So, but it was nice because I was able to preserve and carry on these very special characters. So here is, so this is her current form. I could keep repeating myself, but I'll talk a little bit about her story. Elandria is Herla's mother, and Herla is what I would consider my main character. She was the first created, and then her story evolved based around her. So that gives you an idea of how this happened. But Elandria is her mother, and the story originally and how it's gone is that Elandria and her husband Amergen. So Elandria is a fairy doe, and she is a member of a race that fairy race called the Lurulans, and that's a creation of mine. I do base a lot of things in fairy lore and kind of use that fairy lore, but I make it my own stories, if that makes sense. But so she's a fairy doe, and she is a member of the Lurulan race, and they are the children of Cernunnos and Danu, who are gods, and they essentially spawned this fairy race. And the fairy race has other mothers and fathers who are gods as well. So there's a family, I guess. And they don't always all get along, but this is basically they're kind of deer beings. Deer, so that's where the horns and antlers come in a lot of these characters, which I swap out. Sometimes they wear them, sometimes they don't. It just depends on what I feel like. But so Elandria was a fairy doe, and she Cernunnos is the master of the wild hunt in my lore that I have created here for them, and the Lurulan are members of the wild hunt, and basically they are uncatchable deer. But if a hunter sees them, a predator sees them, they will, if they give chase to basically the prey predator thing, if they go after them, then they will be trapped and pulled into the wild hunt, and basically they will run forever, and time, they'll go through fairy time, which is not our time. And a lot of them will run until their death. Some become in a way changelings because they could be sucked into fairy, but they basically become slaves to it. So that's the way that story works, and I use that theme in some of the stories. That is kind of one of the themes that I work around. But Elandria found her husband Amergen, and Amergen, so again back to the deer. Amergen was a Roman soldier, and they were a special band, so basically a small army. I think of them in a way of something modern as like Navy SEALs, and there were some Roman groups that basically would infiltrate into Gaulish lands and Celtic lands. So in my story, this is So long before the Roman Empire really made a lot of really bases. But anyways, this group of Roman soldiers, and Amergin was their leader. He they were cursed by a witch, a forest witch, who did not like their intrusion into her lands, and she cursed them into stags. And someday I'd like to shell Amergin. There'll be more stories about that. I have some ideas. There's some things in the works, but I'll talk more about that. Anyway, so Amergin became a stag. And he was intelligent and all of that, but he was in the form of a black stag. And that was how he met Elandria. And he was able to basically catch her because she fell in love with him too. So basically, they had Herla, and Herla was very young when the wild hunt began to stir, and Elandria could feel that it was coming back and that she was basically going to have to go back to it. And because this was during a time where the wild hunt held sway over the lands, and she was going to be pulled into it. She could either go back on her own or be pulled against her will later on if she waited too long. So she decided to try to do the best she could by her family with little time to do anything. So she basically called an old friend of the Lurlin family, who is called Woden, who is also in the works and may someday reappear. He is actually probably my oldest character at this point. He actually was created before Herla was really brought into existence. So Woden is even an older character. And it's funny because he'll probably be one of the last to ever be shelled. But Woden is a very ancient being and a member, a Fae, not a Lurlin, a different, an old being that was very close to the first gods. So like basically like a first generation Fae, which are very powerful. But anyways, dog's barking. Okay. Where was I? Okay, so Elandria took Herla, who was a baby at this stage. She was a fawn, so they're deer. So remember, they're deer at this point. She was a fawn, so it's not like she was an infant that needed to be like held and things like that. She was a baby that could walk. She was a fawn. And Elandria kind of pretty much begged Woden to take Herla. Because she didn't want her child to be pulled into the wild hunt with her. She didn't want that for her child. She wanted her to be protected somehow. She knew it was too late for her, but she needed to do something for Herla. So Woden took Herla, and he took her to a fairy realm where she was protected from the call of the wild hunt, because basically, and this is something that I need to work on this part of the story, but basically my idea is that Woden returned to his original kingdom because he was basically the son of a god and a goddess, so he's a first generation Fae, very powerful. And he returned to his kingdom. And he took Herla with her, and because it was his kingdom, she was basically protected from Cernunnos' wild hunt. So he raised her there, and Herla doesn't have a lot of memories of this time, like distinct memories of what happened, but she was trained in medicine, both herbal and magical, and the fairy ways, and it's likely that she lived here for a very, very long time. Fae time travels differently, but she's actually probably a very old being by this time because of the time that she spent in this fairyland with Woden. So Woden raised her to a young adult, and she knew a lot of magic and she knew a lot of medicine and these sorts of things, but her memories of it are very vague. He took her when she was a young woman. I guess I would say she was, maybe 19 or 20-ish if you were thinking about her in those sorts of human terms. They don't necessarily apply to fairy like that, but so it's relatively young and youthful. He took her to a hidden protected forest so that she could have a life there. He was trying to do his best for her. Woden is a very old creature who doesn't always remember everything. Sometimes he has moments of clarity that may last for long times, periods of time, but other times he kind of forgets. But he wanted to do his best for her because he had made a promise to Danu many times ago. I don't know if you can say this is years or it's long, long before he'd made a promise that he was going to look after Danu's children. And there were some children that had more of a special interest to Danu, and Lear was a bit of a guardian of this because Danu was not able to during this time, which is another story. But anyways, he took her to this hidden forest. Okay, I got cut off there, so I figured while I downloaded that portion, I would switch dolls and I'd hold on to Herla since I'm kind of talking about her a little bit. Where was I? This is Herla. She's on the new, that new body that I got, the new old Twiggly body from 2012. There hasn't been any blushing their body that's been happening, but I like her on this body, and I really like this little outfit that she's wearing right now. She stole Danu's boots, and I think she looks really cute in them. Kind of put this outfit together, which is some bits and bobs. This is from Raccoon. It was actually a custom corset that I had made for her when she was going to be incoming, and it was around Christmas time, and she had this deal where she would make a skirt. So this is actually an old skirt of Elandria's, and then I like the double tiered look and the colors. So she's back in her purples. Sometimes she wears all these autumn colors, but I like her in purples right now. Anyways, okay, where was I? So Woden took Herla to this forest where she basically as a young adult and not remembering a lot of specifics about her past, but she had a lot of skills and knowledge and wisdom, even though she was in this young form. She had a life there. She was protected from the wild hunt, and she couldn't leave that forest or risk being called into the wild hunt. So she lived in this forest for a long time, met her husband, Gahern, and had a family. She had Mila. So that's a whole nother story. But so Elandria had to do what she did very hastily, and she didn't have time to talk to Amergen about what was happening and why it was happening. So basically Amergen came and found his wife and child gone, and didn't know why. There is a story where he learned what happened to them. That's another story that maybe some of you probably, a lot of you might know. There's things on my DeviantArt that people may have seen. So these are stories from many years ago, before dolls happened. Pardon me. So Elandria, what happened to Elandria after this point is she was sucked into the wild hunt and was probably there for a very long time. There's the idea that I had was that there were cycles, that Danu and Cernunnos were a balanced pair, and they would swing from one being in like the moon and the sun into power or sway over the land. This story is very vague, and there's probably changes, but the idea was that the time of Cernunnos and the wild hunt, when it waxed and waned. I can't remember which is which, but it waned. And then the time of Danu, the mother, she came back, and the children were called to her, and to families, and to that sort of existence. At this point, Danu could not find her children or her husband, and she returned to Eden Sphere, which is the land of Danu, her fairy realm. And she has looked for her husband and child, but has been unsuccessful. And so at this point, the idea was that she was in this Eden Sphere, this fairy land. Boy, I need to edit this. This is a mess. She was in Eden Sphere for what would be the equivalent of many hundreds of years. And she basically kind of grieved and mourned the loss of her family and her husband, her daughter, and remarried. She remarried Scarlet, who was back there. It's my lily cat, Constantine. So Elandria and Scarlet, basically, they're a couple at this point in time. So I think and it was kind of like this interesting like drama or thing that could happen, because Herla and Neela came back. And then it started opening the door that, well, maybe Amergen is alive, and he maybe is actually going to be found, and that he may come back. And this is very difficult for Elandria because she's moved on and has a life now with somebody else, and how, what's going to happen. That's a very difficult thing. So that's where we stand with that story. My ideas that I've had, so Elandria's in this blue lily cat form, is that, so this is Trinity, and she's my white skin ombre. And one of the things I'm considering is doing is merging Elandria and Trinity. So their stories would merge. Elandria's, she would become Elandria. Trinity, the name Trinity that's the part that would stand aside. She would still have a sister. Lady is her sister. She would still have that part of the story, that she had a sister that she was separated from and that she was looking for. And one of the ideas that I had, instead of Elandria having left Herla and Amergen because of the wild hunt, that she may have needed to go look for her sister, and that knowing that would take her far, far away. So that's something that's under consideration, is merging these two characters. One of the things that I like about that is I have this theme of the Nephilim, which is the ultimate goal of Danu's breeding program, which is kind of what it is. It's a long-term generational, let's take in many millennia. So that is something that may happen, that I'm strongly considering. Let me go back to this part, the Nephilim. So that is the ultimate goal of Danu's breeding program, and what I have come to discover through working on Lady here is that she is a Nephilim. She is an example, though, of an unsuccessful one. So the Nephilim are very powerful beings who have had their bloodlines weaved in ways that we don't know, that are not completely clear. Only Danu knows all the details. But the Nephilim are very, very powerful beings that have the power and ability of the gods. So creation, destruction, in moving through time and space and manipulating time and space. So gods. They have the memories of their entire ancestral family, which is very difficult to do. Even gods don't have ancestral history, so they don't have that, but she's trying to create a race of god, or create a god that has the memories and history of a mortal existence, which is very important to know because it makes them powerful in another way. But so Lady, she is a Nephilim. Another Nephilim is Neela. And Neela is successful. She's balanced. She has good control and is not controlled by what she is. And Lady was a being that was crushed. She was crushed in many ways, emotionally, physically. I've always had the story that these two were bonded, and that she was the powerful one and she was the weaker one. But I still am kind of working that story out a little bit of how that works. But I think Lady, yes, at one time she was that, and she needed her sister to help her with that balance because she wasn't able to do it on her own. So when they were split, she was very much destroyed. So it's unclear whether she can be recuperated or not at this point, whether it's something that she can be healed. She's in Eden Sphere, and her sister doesn't understand totally, what she is. But the idea is that she's trying to heal her and help her, and that's where Lark, the human facier, is going to come in more, because I think that's going to be part of her healing, and her healing may not be that she comes back to being a full power Nephilim. Her healing might just be that she can function and that she can love and be happy again. So that's kind of the goal for her sister, really, and why she doesn't like Lark. Elandria Trinity does not like Lark in a lot of ways, but it's the only creature that has even somewhat brought Lady out of herself, and to give her a glimmer of her old personality, instead of just hiding all the time and not socializing, not wanting to have anything to do with anybody, not talking, and trying to bring her back. So there's that story that's in the works, and my idea for things. But you can see, I don't know if you can see them how well here, but Elandria and Trinity, I think that switch or that merging it's not difficult. They're very similar. Look at them. They're very, very similar. They're the same sculpt for one, and they're very, very similar, and their stories do merge very easily and naturally. Okay, so this is my other idea, is that that I may make Elandria into an SD. So this is my sleeping ingenue head, and because I have switched I've switched Herla to that old 2012 Delshi body, and I've had her on this. I've had this sculpt on this one, and so this is the potential that I may make this into Elandria. The benefits of that, or the pros, are that she will be an SD, and like Herla, who is an SD, and that she'd be able to interact more with the other SDs that are pretty important. Like Ahern, Amelia, and Stuart are becoming more and more important to the story that I have kind of in works in my mind. Cernyanos and Danu, Sion, and the incoming Elbe, she would be more in that circle, I guess. The downside of that, there's a lot of downsides, is that I would, that story with, the side of the story with Trinity and Lady, and with Scarlet, that story would really kind of fade away, or that would be difficult. I also have, maybe I'll just admit it here, I have a Feeple 60 Karsh on layaway, who is about a 60 centimeter doll, and my hope was that that Trinity Lady, that could be Amergen. So basically the idea is that might be Amergen. He's too short for this girl though, because she's pretty much a 70 centimeter doll. So even though he's an SD, it really wouldn't work. I posted some of this on my Instagram too. This is my Cheek Sparrow traveler's notebook, and I have a doll journal in here, which is probably the biggest thing that I do with this. And I think I showed this, yeah, I showed the spread on Instagram, and this is kind of an example of some of the things that I do in my journal. It's very organic, so it's put together a piece at a time, and it flows, and so there's writing. Let's see if this goes like, so I had a way this goes. It's very organic, and there's, I guess what I would say, like a pathway of my thoughts, which is, I think this is pretty apt of how my brain does work, especially when it comes to these stories. Hand-drawn some Celtic knots in here, which I used to do a lot of Celtic knot work, and so these are hand-drawn in here, and that's some more pictures, some feathers and flowers. So I know a lot of people are interested, and maybe I'll show. So here's the Karsh. I'm testing up. It's very organic, and that's my way of saying very messy. So I'm kind of embarrassed in a way of showing it. This is how the pages start. I do washes. So I'll go through and I'll just do bunches of washes on pages, and then I go through and start doing writing on them. And then sometimes pictures and or drawings happen, and that's the way that goes. But I'm having a good time with the journal. Really like my journal. Okay, so that was Lots and lots of blabbing. Herla's got wig problems. So I'll try to edit this a little bit, and hopefully it's not going to be an hour, but no promises. So thanks for watching. I hope you're having a great Monday, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye. One more thing. One more thing, because I forgot, is I moved Maria to this old style doll in mind body, which I was very fortunate to be able to procure because I really wanted a doll in mind body. And this is an Annabeth, I always get mixed up. This is Maria. She's painted as a Calavera Day of the Dead style, but I really like her on this body. It's more mature appearing, and just because she was on a Lutz Kid Delph body. That's what she's always been on, and this it just suits her. It's more Maria. She was Maria before, but now she's more Maria, if that makes sense. So I'm very, very happy with her on this body. It's very nice. And then, so the other thing is that I have made some progress on some of these vests that I've been working on. Basically just some embroidery that I did, that I've been working on for this vest that I made for Sion, which I think matches. And I didn't do a panel on the back. Oh, come here, big guy. I didn't do a panel on the back, but I really like this fabric. It's almost gone. I love this fabric so much. Coming apart, buddy. He's a big doll. He is difficult to hold on screen. He's like a 73 centimeter doll. Oh, I didn't finish that, did I? There's lots of things I haven't finished. But he's a handsome guy. Alright, thanks for watching. I'm done for reals this time. See ya, bye-bye.